God, he's going to go around the inside and he's going to send it. He's taking the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix on the last lap. Matt Turner takes the win in a remarkable race. We have teammates coming together. How devastating! And welcoming everyone to the iFormula League Formula 3 series here, round number 6 here from Circuit of the Americas. And again, it is going to be a absolutely fantastic race that we have in store. I am your commentator, Alyssa Long, and I am here joined by Weston Epps as well in the commentary booth with me. Hello, Weston.
Everybody, I'm happy to be back. Happy to watch this amazing race. It's going to be a hot one out there, so hopefully these drivers can keep it on track.
Yeah, absolutely. 109 degrees Fahrenheit, which is definitely in the hotter end that than we traditionally see. But again, you know, hopefully the drivers can all keep up with what's going on regarding with tire temps and things like that. Obviously, turn number 1 we know was very tricky from yesterday's race in the F2. We saw a lot of drivers spinning out there, as well as the final corner catching quite a few people off guard as well. But we are into qualifying, but before we get into sort of who's doing what lap time wise, let's talk a little bit about the championship standings as it is right now. Unfortunately, again, no fancy graphics, so I'll just be telling you here from our little league page. So at the moment, your number 1 driver is Victor Barris with 85 points, followed up by his teammate Antonio Jimenez with 84. So look for that battle to be quite exciting. I'm imagining both drivers obviously very quick in their given days. So if Antonio can beat Barris here today, he will take the lead of the championship. Frederick Larson then takes 3rd place with 60 points, followed behind by Joe Watts with 50 points, Jake Potts in 5th with 48, and Julie Redman in 6th with 42. James Malaire taking 7th with 32 points, Brandon Walker with 28 points, followed behind by Tico Kriegsman with 27 points. So again, another close battle to maybe take a look at between Brandon and Tico. Obviously being only 1 point difference, whoever finishes ahead of the other will hopefully gain those couple of spots in the championship standings. Then to round out our top 10, we do have Danny O'Keefe with 12 points. And yeah, I mean, the championship as it stands right now, obviously we've seen some great action in the first 5 rounds so far. And it looks as though sort of the top 2 guys, Antonio and Victor Barris, obviously seem to have that sort of level of work above everyone else, and then it seems like it sort of drops off a little bit from what I've seen so far of the F3 League. Obviously, Weston, you've been following it probably a bit more closely than I have, so you may have some more knowledge as to just how close this racing can get.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tellez and Barris definitely are some of the faster, but as we saw last week in Hungary, Jake Potts and Tico Kriegsman are able to get that pace, and unfortunately he lost it last week on strategy against Tellez. So hopefully the strategy is going to be better this week. With Joe Watts not going to be attending with us today, unfortunately, so it's going to be a battle between Lumos and Driver X with Victor Barris. The pace is there, but the consistency needs to work. I mean, Tellez and Barris just can fly around the track and get little to no off tracks while still maintaining a super high or super low lap time. So it will be close, but at the moment it does seem that Barris and Tellez are running away with it. But they are having a vicious fight on their hands for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes to that inter-team battle, as we see Antonio Jimenez just talking about him there, currently in 1st place. I mean, admittedly though, it doesn't seem like he's going to be particularly sort of on that next level pace compared to everyone else. I mean, at least as far as qualifying is concerned right now. I mean, yes, it has only been 6 minutes, And obviously we still have another, 19 minutes left to go, and everyone's improving their times all the time. Julie Redmond's currently on a flyer. Jake Potts is currently setting the fastest lap of qualifying, just as I say that. So Danny O'Keefe fastest in sector 1, lost it a little bit in sector 2 and 3, but maybe puts himself up there closer towards the top guys. So I reckon this one's going to be pretty close in terms of a qualifying session. And yeah, I mean, that inter-team battle, obviously we talk about it quite a lot here, and really sort of want to see just what that level is going to be like. I mean, in comparison to say, for example, in real life F1, obviously you know who the number 1 and number 2 drivers are on most weekends, so there's normally a little bit of team orders, but I wonder whether or not Victor and Antonio are actually just going to battle each other and just not worry about team orders and just say, hey, we're here to race, let's do it.
Well, you hope they have the line. If they're battling each other and whoever is behind is able to catch them, you think they would be able to put that aside for the better of the Constructors' Championship and continue just to drive single file if they both have the pace. But I think this week's going to be a pretty close one. I've been keeping an eye on F3 practice throughout the week, and Tieko Kriegsmann is really setting flyers. He's really comfortable and in his element around here. But unfortunately, as we learned, he got injured in a football match and injured his wrist. But he's still out here. We'll see if that injury is gonna help or hurt his time at all. Like I said, he's been doing flyers, so hopefully he'll keep up.
Yeah, I mean, talking about it right now, he does have a purple through the second sector and then going green through sector 3, so we'll keep on board with him here for the rest of this lap and just see whether or not he can finish this lap strong and maybe put himself up into pole position. Currently only down a 10th, so I'd imagine he's already found that, obviously going purple through sector 2 and then having sector 1 and sector 3 also being green, so finding improvements everywhere on this circuit, it seems like. Heading into turn number 16 here and then into 17, which as far as I'm aware for these cars should be pretty easy flat. I can't imagine them having too many issues. I know I've only driven this track a couple times in like GTE cars, so it may not be a sort of similar level of downforce, but if those guys can handle it flat, I'm sure we can in F3. But just as I say that, we will see Kriegsmann come over the line and indeed does set the fastest lap so far with a 158.4, which is considerably quicker than anyone else has managed so far.
Half a second quicker than P2. Danny O'Keefe up though into P2. That's looking nice. Barris can only manage P3. We are still only 10 minutes into qualifying, so I'm sure these guys are hiding a little bit of pace. They're going to be pulling that out as they get more comfortable and as the tires get more rubbered in. But right now, Kriegsmann's he's running away with it. He looks unchallenged this week. But we see Jimenez with 2 purple sectors, and
yeah, and then again, personal best through sector 3. So has a little bit of traffic in the way. Thankfully, they get out of the way and makes a nice and easy time. Obviously, as I say, through these flat out turns 17, 18, and then into 19. You've got to be so committed through turn 19, but it's also very easy to get an off track there as well. And then through turn 20, as I said, was catching a lot of drivers out in F2, but I'd imagine in F3, potentially not the same issue, as Jimenez does go fastest with a 158.3, and well, I think we know who we're going to be seeing on top at the moment, although Vitaltas did just finish his lap, and I was looking to see whether or not he improved at all, because he did go purple in sector 3, but may have had an off track, and that's why we're not seeing that lap time up there. So yeah, interesting to note. Obviously, if you go off track at all, your lap time will be invalid and it won't count. So even if you are up on your time, we won't see it here for the representative lap times on the side of the screen for everyone. So just it's things to keep in note. It's quite easy to get off tracks around here, so you got to try and keep within those white lines as much as you can, and yeah, just try and find every little bit of road that you can use and make the most out of it.
Absolutely, and with the track being so hot, it's very slippery. And with the new tire model that's come out for these cars, it's easier to get to that point, but it's also way easier to overheat your tires if you're pushing for too long. So these drivers are really going to have to find the balance of how much time are you willing to eke out over the course of the race in comparison to how much you want to degrade your tires. Um, this heat, it's gonna be a very interesting one on strategy. Do you go long and suffer with the tires, but on lower fuel, or do you just pit early, make sure you have everything, and then just push flat out towards the end of the race and don't lose that momentum that you've gained? So strategy is going to be a key part of today's race.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I'm looking at the times at the moment and not really seeing anyone massively improving. I think Jackson Carr at the moment is one of the only ones who's actually up on his time. Coming through, I believe he'll be coming through the final corner now, and we'll just see whether or not he can improve and push himself a little bit further up, as Jimenez does go does set a new fastest final sector, but I believe that was just on his outlap, so potentially going to have to push a little bit harder to see if he can jump up any more positions, or at least just extend the gap. I mean, Antonio currently obviously having P1, doesn't really need to go much higher than that, so just wants to avoid Kriegsmann being able to come back at him near the end of the session. Obviously we know the track's going to get rubbered in, everyone's going to start running faster lap times, and that's what we're seeing at the moment through Victor Barris, who's purple, sorry, not purple, but green on every sector so far, and Kriegsmann also purple through sector 2 and unfortunately down through sector 1 and sector 3. So we'll wait and see whether or not he improves at all and he goes even quicker, maybe puts himself on pole position, but he's going to need one hell of a final sector to do it, and is just shy 158.314, which is going to be very, very close for the top. And you know, it's one of those things that when you're that close to the drivers ahead of you, then you know, you sort of almost sort of look at that lap and be like, where was it? Where was that 0.013 of a second? You know, where was that small amount of time? Did the car slip anywhere at all, or do I just need to push it that little bit harder into a couple of these corners? As we see, I believe that was Vitaltus pushing up a little bit and moving himself up to 10th. But interesting to note with a lot of these guys, obviously Vitaltus is actually on currently a faster lap even, so purple through sector 3 and then green in sector 1 and sector 2, so potentially we may see Vitaltus start to push up towards the top of the timing sheets, as he will come around the final corner and go incredibly wide out of the final corner, so unfortunately that lap won't count. But yeah, I mean, regarding the track, obviously it's very difficult to get a full lap around here that's representative. I think the flow is either you have it or you don't, especially through sector 1 with the S's. Very easy, obviously, because the corners flow one after the other. You sort of have to get the first one right, and if you don't, you're going to end in a situation where, you know, you have all of this time loss bleeding through each significant next part. Because you need to really set yourself up. It's like the Suzuka S's, right? So, you know, it's very, very flowy, but at the same time, you get then to other parts of this circuit where it's almost a completely different style of driving per sector, which makes it a unique challenge, definitely, and one these drivers, I'm sure, are going to try their best to overcome throughout the course of the race as well.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Every time you offset your line just a little bit on entry, that bleeds into the next corners, and that's very, you can see that after the S's too. If you don't get a good run and you go a little bit wide in the S, there's another right-hander into a left that you just can't set the car and get the car balanced enough to go through as fast as you can. As we see Mayorga go across the line, only 15. You have to understand where the car is gonna go, and put it there. Otherwise, it's just gonna bleed all the way through, and you can lose half a second throughout the first sector alone.
Yeah, it almost seems like you need to very much work with the car and really sort of help the car to turn in through these corners, and instead of trying to fight it all the way through, you really just need to be smooth and very precise. And obviously what it means in qualifying is that is the ideal thing, right? You know, you want to be hitting your marks perfectly every single time, and I think when you start to push, as we may see from Kriegsmann, obviously so close to Jimenez, he may try and push it just that little bit too much in one corner, and it will bleed time through the rest of the sector that he's on. So it's almost one of those things in qualifying where you want to give it 100%, but you almost can't risk it, because you'll end up in a situation where, you know, with 5 minutes left, you need to get that lap in, and you just can't seem to find the time. But definitely not going to be unhappy with second place, I imagine. Second place on the grid. It will give him a massive opportunity to attack into turn 1 as well.
So, but he's going to have to get a good start. If he doesn't have a good start, Jimenez can just chop him and take the inside. He's going to have to get that good start, otherwise it's all going to be for naught, because it's incredibly hard to follow and overtake outside of certain areas. Obviously, the last turn and first turn are great overtaking opportunities, but everywhere else you kind of have to follow, considering how sharp these hairpins can get.
Yeah, and I know we saw a lot of people trying to make moves through turn 12, you know, down the back straight into turn 12. You know, if you can follow really closely out of turn 11 down the back straight, then maybe you can set up a move there, but it almost seems like even if you do, they'll just be back on your inside again for turn 13 and 14, which, you know, is just not ideal, and then you'll just be bleeding time to everyone else around you. But I think I saw there, who was that? That was Jeremy Lapanis, who's just gone up into 15th place. So all the drivers so far have set a lap time, and that will be 21 cars for this grid today. So yeah, quite a decent turnout in comparison to the F2 yesterday, at least. But this F3 grid is always seems to be one of the biggest on the weekend for sure. So that's not surprising at all to see, you know, so many drivers turn out and really, you know, try to just give it everything they can and compete just for the enjoyment of it. It seems like for a lot of these drivers, as I believe Vitaltas is on an outlap so far, but decided to maybe try and push it a little bit through the final couple of sectors and just set a purple through sector 3 just to let us know, hey, I am capable of doing a quick lap here. I just need to put it together, and you know, we'll keep an eye on it and see whether or not he can indeed set that faster lap. And hey, if he can, I mean, more power to him. You know, if we can get even more people close to that sort of 158.3 benchmark that Jimenez has set, you know, that's going to be great for racing in the end.
Absolutely, and it does look like we have a pretty spaced out field here after 8th or 10th. So hopefully they can all get closer. I'm very interested to see where Kriegsmann comes out, because he's able to set consistent purple middle sectors like he just did right here, but is he going to be able to finish it? It only needs 1/100th of a second. That's like a tenth more on the accelerator. Hopefully he can pull it out. But do you even want that? Do you want to sacrifice that inside run into turn 1 for pole? As he goes pole right now with a 58.1.
Yeah, I was just about to
He
say.
had it in him.
I was just about to say. He looked like he was going quick through Sector 2, and definitely in Sector 1 he was trying to do a new PB, and in Sector 3, yeah, he dropped off a little bit, but managed just to pull it back in the final sector and goes P1 there with a 158.175, which I think is a very respectable time. You know, it's something that I think now we sort of now look to the upper echelons of maybe the 157s and seeing if any driver can just sneak in there, but it's going to require a lot of effort. I think Kriegsmann is definitely on the limit here of lap time, as Eric Beddoes, I believe, might just improve his lap time. We'll wait and see what that looks like in a second, or it could have been an invalid lap. So Victor Barris is currently up on his times as well. So we'll take a look on Victor Barris, just coming through, I believe, turn number 19 and now into turn number 20. So seeing whether or not he can improve at all. And obviously Victor Barris is wanting to improve and really wanting to take the fight to Kriegsmann and Jimenez for the championship, but seems to have had an invalid lap that last one. So
That's unfortunate. With all of those personal bests, he may have just been aiming to get past Jimenez. I mean, he wants to get on that front row. While him and Jimenez are teammates, they still want to beat each other. They still want that driver's championship, and if you can get the edge, he needs to do it. So that's an unfortunate Unfortunate invalidated lap as we see Takeo Kriegsman once again go purple in the second sector. He just has that nailed down. He can't miss it.
It is incredibly impressive, definitely. To see that level of consistency in there for that driver is just absolutely insane. I think that was an invalid lap though, so we won't see an improvement on lap time, but yeah, I mean, regardless, it's just one of those things that I think as a driver you look for that consistency. And yeah, I mean, in qualifying all you're going for is fastest laps, so maybe you don't care necessarily whether or not you've got laps that are, you know, seconds apart. You just really care about the one that was your overall fastest. But even still, I think if you can show the consistency in qualifying, then in the race, you know, people are going to be aware of that and know just how quick you are.
Exactly. You don't want to put all of your cards on the table just yet. You want to save that for the end. As we see a big slide. Oh, that's unfortunate.
I believe that was for Sean Roberts and James Miller, I believe, both going off the track there and maybe collided with each other, I'm not quite sure, or just spinning out by themselves, but not what you want in qualifying. But thankfully with 3 minutes left they should be able to get around the track if they go back to the pits and get out there for one more flyer. It will really seem to be the last time you can get out there will be, you need to sort of go right now or else you're not going to get round in time to start your next flying lap and push for that pole position time. As I'm sure a lot of these drivers are going to want to do, you know, is improve their positions last minute, make sure that no one else can respond to what they're doing. You know, Julie Redman on an outlap now, Olsen on an outlap, James Millett also on an outlap to try and just make that one final push to see if they can improve anywhere, as Vitaltus also comes across the line, and we'll see whether or not he improves, but it doesn't look like he does, and instead he will just go for one more run, I imagine, on his set of tyres to make a push and see if he can jump up from P11, maybe up into P7 or P6 even. Obviously, it will be a big find if he can find that 1 second that he would need to do that. But, you know, it's possible. Obviously, it seems like the gaps seem quite large, actually, once you sort of get out of the top 3 and then into 4th, 5th, and 6th, you know, you're separated by 0.2 on each, and then you start getting more towards the midfield, from P6 down to P10, all separated by a second. So that's where you start to really get close for the rest of the qualifying, and hopefully it stays that close throughout the race. Obviously, it's one thing having qualifying pace, but it's another having it in the race as well. You know, once the car gets heavier fuel, I imagine these drivers may find that the car handles a little bit differently. So it's almost, you know, on varying track conditions as well. You know, it could get colder, it could also get hotter. So we aren't aware what the weather's going to do. And if it does indeed get hotter, then these drivers will need to be aware and adapt to that.
Absolutely. If it does get any hotter, and we see the field spaced out as it is, it's only a fight with yourself, keeping yourself on track, not getting any off tracks, not getting any car contacts, any sort of incident points, because drive-throughs are going to be a killer here. Remember, if you get 16 incident points, that is a drive-through. So I think a lot of these drivers are going to be fighting with themselves around that if it gets any hotter than it already is. It's a scorcher down there today.
Yeah, and it looks like most people are set back in the pits now and maybe just putting back on their race setups and making sure they get the right setups loaded, because you know, that's one thing you want to try and avoid is loading the qualifying setup before the race. May have had experience doing that one time or another. It wasn't great, and definitely makes you feel a bit of a fool, especially in these types of races as well. But no one seems to be improving on their time, so yeah, I mean, as it stands, this will be what qualifying will look like as Kriesman does come over the line. Will just about have enough time to go for one more lap if he so wishes. Same with Victor Barris and Patrick Olsen, and I believe Jimenez as well. So we'll look to see if any of those improve their time, but as it stands at the moment, it looks like Victor Barris down in Sector 1, down in Sector 2, and does indeed call that lap off. And I believe Antonio Jimenez is also down on his lap times, maybe matching through a couple of sectors, but not really pushing as much as he could. And then Tico Kriegsman again down on his time. So it's looking as though later on into this session, people were just struggling to find the grip out there that they had earlier on.
Yeah, absolutely. Except Tieko, who once again goes purple second sector, never fails. But right now, it is squeaky bum time for these drivers, as we see. Oh, unfortunate. As Kriegsman just wanted to tell us, hey, I'm still here. I can still set these purple second sectors. I haven't even gotten close to my best yet. I mean, watching him go through the S's, his tail was just planted. I mean, his rear end just did not. It skipped out a little bit, but once he unloaded the steering a little bit, it just got right back on. I think his setup is really swell this time out. But as we see Jimenez trying to improve, but just not setting even personal best for his time. I think he's just trying to give it one more college try.
Yeah, and I mean, is that damage on his front wing? I think I see there as well. Like the front seems to be lifted slightly, so maybe he picked up damage on one lap. So unfortunately, no improvements. But that'll be it for qualifying. And you know, in terms of qualifying results, I mean, it kind of went how I was expecting it to go. You know, I don't think I'm seeing anyone out there. Maybe Tieko Kriegsman obviously showing us that he does have that pace to keep up with Jimenez and Barris, and even, you know, faster. So maybe we're finally starting to see that level of talent from these drivers that, you know, after a couple of rounds, I've gotten used to the car, gotten used to how the setup works and how to really get the most out of it, and now I can really show you what I've got. So you know, maybe a couple of surprises, but I think overall it was pretty standard from what we've seen so far this season, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Kriegsman is a good upset. He's been kind of here and there all over the standings, but to come out here and beat Driver X, who everybody kind of sees as the pole sitter just about on every track, is a real statement that, hey, we can come out and compete with you. And we saw Potts do that last week as well with the pole at Hungary. Driver X is not immortal. They are very strong and consistent, but they're not immortal. They can fall. So we'll see how this start goes. I really hope that Tieko really chops and takes that inside. Otherwise, I believe that P2 is going to shoot up that inside. Just take it.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's see if we can get the results up from qualifying just to show us how the grid is going to line up for the start of this race, obviously with Tieko Kriegsman being that man on pole position with a 158.175. So we didn't see anyone drop down into the 157s in the end, but, you know, I thought maybe if Kriegsman was setting Sector 2 times like he was, he may have found a way to do it, but unfortunately not. And it will be Antonio Jimenez and Victor Barris taking second and third for the DriveX esports team, followed off by Jake Potts there in fourth with the Lumos Motorsports team, Danny O'Keefe with Orion Racing in fifth, James Millett in sixth with Lumos Motorsports, and Brandon Walker there in seventh for the first of the CUDA Works team drivers. Darius in 8th for Locals Autosport, followed off by Julie Redman there in the other CUDA Works car. Patrick Olsen takes out your top 10 with High Gear Racing, followed off by Vitaltus for the other Locals Autosport car there in 11th. Jackson Carr in 12th for Ariga Motorsports, followed off by Sean Roberts in 13th for Pure Racing Opposition. John Rowland with Blue Frog Racing in 14th, who I believe is a new team into the championship from, I believe did they enter last week?
I believe so, week before, but they are a relatively new team, so we haven't really seen them battling throughout the field, but hopefully they can show up today and really put on some scary moves on people.
Yeah, absolutely. But we also then have Jeremy Lapanis there in 15th, followed off by Stuart Gibbons in 16th for the CUDA Evo team. Arturo in 17th for the other Blue Frog Racing car, and Eric Beddoes there for BE Racing in 18th. And I believe that is as much as it's going to show me for some reason. Not sure why it's not showing me the rest of them, but we do have at least 18 results on our screens for you. I believe the other results here are going to be... if I can remember.
I'd like to say, what an impressive showing from Danny O'Keefe. Usually below the Kuda Works and the Lumos. This week he's right up there. He's really going to bring the fight to these Lumos drivers. I'm very excited to see how Danny O'Keefe runs through this race and if he's able to stay up in that top 5.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, you know, we talk about, you know, drivers who maybe find actual circuits to be a little bit better than others for them. And yeah, I mean, as you said, with Danny O'Keefe being out there as high as he is, you know, it's a good result for him, and I'm sure he's not going to be complaining at all about starting there in 5th position. And yeah, only 8 tenths off what we thought was a very impressive lap from Tico Kriegsmann as well. So, you know, proving that he does have that pace to maybe compete with the top guys eventually. You know, 8 tenths, still quite a bit of time to find, but hey, maybe he can find that during the race. You know, we've seen qualifying pace from all these drivers, but it's not necessarily about how fast you can be in there. It's about how fast you can be when it actually matters in the race scenario. And, you know, all it would take is just a couple of battles and for you to wear the driver in front's tires out, and then all of a sudden you're finding yourself, you know, going from 5th to 3rd on the first lap, maybe even first corner, if people don't get a good start. So let's see if Danny O'Keefe maybe does a couple of cheeky practice starts as well, and really tries to get a massive start off the grid. Obviously, we'll be on the inside line as well, so probably a benefit for him there.
Absolutely, and with this new tire model, like I was saying earlier, it really is important not to let your tires overheat, otherwise you will lose all grip. So it puts more pressure, if you put more pressure on the driver in front of you and badger them and send them fake moves and just remain pressure on them, then they'll be more than likely to overheat their tires from pushing too much, and then you can just gain the position without much of a fight. But you have to be patient. That's the key with racing. You just have to be patient. Let the other driver make the mistake. Don't overextend yourself just to force a move. And that's how you're going to win around here, especially with how hot it is. I think overheating the tires and badgering other racers is going to be the play rather than forcing moves that, you know, shouldn't really be there.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think what you were saying, it's one of those things where you almost want to relax a little bit off the starting grid and instead focus more on just getting through lap 1, lining yourself up to maybe get into a good position here on lap 2, and just settle into the groove. Obviously, with quite a few laps here as well around this circuit. You know, we've got 28 laps, which for these cars is gonna feel like quite a long time. So we'll wait and see. Obviously, the last couple of positions that I wasn't able to read for you in the results page was Nicholas Marshall in 19th, Vincent Saint in 20th, and Steve Bunting rounding out the final part of the grid there in 21st. So let's take a look at the grid, and I will say it definitely does look nice to see all those F3 cars lining up. Although I will say, they seem to always line up a little bit further to the left of their boxes than they probably should. But that's just, unfortunately something that we can't fix.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this run down to T1 is gonna set the entire tone of the race.
But here we go then. All 5 red lights, green flag is go, and it looks like it was a good start from a couple of drivers. One of the drivers there in the back getting quite a sloppy start, but at least for the top guys, there seems to be quite a good run into turn number 1. So far, the top 3 having no issues yet. And further down the order, we're going to look towards Danny O'Keefe and Jake Potts battling side by side. And it looked as though Jake Potts was almost going to try and throw something at him. But we also seem to have got a safety car already for an incident that happened, I believe, earlier on, maybe into turn number 1. I'm not sure if we caught that at all. So Gibbons looks like he's back in the pit lane and might be out of this race. Not sure if you caught anything there into turn number 1, but... yeah, it looked like it was a pretty good start for most of the grid. Obviously, a couple of drivers struggling to get off the line straight away, but it's looked like, as I say, at least for the front runners, it looked like it was relatively clean. And then in the midfield, it was, yeah, there was a lot of cars pretty close, but it looked like it was pretty clean.
I was keeping an eye on the back drivers, and unfortunately, somebody must have missed their braking zone and hit the rear tire of another car, sending it up. They got it all sorted out, but that's what caused the yellow flag, unfortunately.
And let's take a look to see if we can get some onboards of some of the action that happened here off the start. So we'll jump on board with Stuart Gibbons into turn number 1. You see so many cars there into turn number 1 and getting all sorts of sideways, and then Stuart Gibbons getting hit from the rear end by somebody. I'm sure we'll take a look at that one in a second, and having to come to a close on the exit of that corner right in the middle of the circuit. Not a place you want to be. But let's take a look at Steve Bunting as well to see what happened here into turn number 1. So Steve Bunting turns in, and it looks like the contact was already made there. So looked as though just everyone just unfortunately has just had a little bit of issues trying to navigate around that stopped car in the middle of the track, and as such it means that we threw the yellow, and we'll have to reset the race and go single file. But yeah, what it'll mean is Tico Kriesman will be able to set the pace for the start of this, or for the restart, I should say, of the race going forward.
Yeah, if I was Kriesman, I would not be happy with that safety car. Unfortunately, it just gives the drivers behind you, like they're not fighting with each other. You're not able to run away. They're all focused on you. He's really gonna have to nail this restart in order to get that momentum back. But we'll see if he'll be able to do that. If not, then he's gonna have a fight on his hands. Jimenez is not gonna make this easy for him.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, what it's going to mean is maybe we'll see Victor Barris and Antonio Jimenez working together, with one driver doing maybe more of defensive work towards the rear of the field and holding up maybe Danny O'Keefe, who did indeed gain a position there off the start, so up into 4th now, having overtaken Jake Potts. But another driver who gained quite a few positions off the start was Nicholas Marshall, up into 13th place already,
Wow.
so gaining 6 spots off the start. So I'm not sure whether or not they just capitalized off of everyone going a bit slower through turn 1 and just managed to make it through. But yeah, 6 spots off the start is definitely quite nice for Nicholas.
That's incredibly impressive. I mean, an overtake is an overtake. You see a gap, you just got to go for it. You know, if he can get those 6 spots, I mean, more power to him. That's an incredibly impressive start from Nicholas Marshall.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vincent Saint seemed to also do another similar thing, gaining 5 spots off the start from nearer the further back of the grid. And Vitaltas seemed to have dropped 7 spots there off the start. So I'm pretty sure Vitaltas was one of the ones who lost out big time. And Stuart Gibbons as well, losing 5 spots, now also in the pit lane, having quite that lengthy pit stop. So I think Stuart Gibbons was one of the ones that maybe we saw off the start who didn't get the launch he wanted, and was just unfortunate to have so many people coming out all over him off the start of the race. So yeah, and to have that contact, unfortunately we didn't see who it was that hit into the side of him, but I'm sure at some point we can take a look back and see just what happened with that.
Yeah, that was a very unfortunate start, but people did make it through, so we'll see how this restart goes. I'm still pulling for Krigsman. I still think that he has the best shot at winning this Grand Prix today. But if, like you said, Barris is going to be running defense behind him and not allowing any of the cars behind him, he's just going to let Jimenez run after Krigsman. I think Krigsman's, I think he's in a very vulnerable position.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's not going to have the big pack behind him to fight and slow each other down. He's not going to gain that big gap that he could have without the safety car.
But also keep in mind that he will control when we go green as well, so he can leave it as early or as late as he wants. And if he sees that Jimenez is catching up a bit, he might just intentionally slow down a bit, waiting to see Jimenez slow down, and then start to gun it immediately after he sees the reaction. So you know, you can play a little bit of mind games in regards to the safety car with that sort of a bit of tricks that you may have picked up from various F1 drivers doing it in real life. And you know, there's a lot of tricks that can be played when you're leading a safety car group, and one of which I hope we don't see, but it's the old trick of braking when you when you look like you were about to go, and just braking so that people overtake you before the start finish line and get themselves penalties. Obviously quite unsporting, and something I hope we never see, but yeah, it's definitely a thing that you can play. One thing I am curious about actually is whether or not we'll see any drivers go early into the pit lane as well. Obviously we've seen the undercut strategy be very powerful a lot of the times here in a lot of these races, with you know, various different drivers opting to take that early pit stop, maybe get it over and done with. And indeed we have seen Vitaltis drive into the pit lane, so unless Vitaltis maybe picked up some damage, and that's why he's into the pits now, as this will be the final lap under safety car, so Tico will be leading us for the green flag when the safety car comes in this time by. But yeah, as I mentioned, with an early pit stop, obviously you can actually stand to gain a bit here, because the race is effectively neutralized and you're not really losing much time underneath the safety car when, you know, everyone's traveling so slowly, and you can just go through the pit lane at, you know, the same speed effectively as what the safety car is managing to do. So interesting to see where Vitaltis comes out in all of that. I believe he is still at the back of the grid, but yeah, having done his pit stop, what that means is he can probably just drive straight to the end. We'll see whether or not the fuel gets there. But I know I've talked to Carlos Quital quite a bit about it, and he said that at least in the F2 car, you can just go straight to the end with the same set of tires and almost a full tank of fuel. So whether it's the same in these F3 cars, we'll wait and see. But yeah, it provides a bit of strategy. You know, obviously if you're further up the field, you're maybe not as likely to go for a strategy like that, but if you're already down there and near the bottom of the field, you kind of have nothing to lose by trying it.
Absolutely. If you're already stuck in traffic, you may just want to go ahead and go for it and just wait for the undercut, but it will hold you up being behind the slower cars further down the grid. If you pit that early, you're not able to pit so early in these F3 cars um, that you can just go to the end of the race on lap 3. I believe the minimum pit this race is going to be like lap 11 or lap 12. Then we'll start seeing the undercuts, and that's pretty early. So I think it all depends on where you come out. If you're able to get in clean air. If I was Kriegsman, I would not be pitting right now. If I was anywhere in the top 10, I would not be pitting right now. You just want to gain that gap on the slower cars behind and stay with the pack in front of you just for right now, and hope for another safety car. But we will see soon, as this is the last lap of the safety car, and we see Kriegman heating up his tires in the already blazing sun. Everybody's getting ready for this.
Yeah, and I'm not
This
sure whether or
restart.
not we had the track temp gain. I think it was staying around about the same as what we had originally, around about that 104 Fahrenheit that we saw in the pre-race information. So yeah, I mean, regarding track temps, obviously it's still incredibly hot, but I think as it gets further through the session, we may see that track temp come down a little bit as well. But still quite a bit of the lap left to go. Obviously this track is quite a considerable length, so have a safety car going so slow makes this lap pretty excruciating in terms of lap time. I mean, you're almost looking at an extra, 2 minutes added on.
Yeah. But we're almost at the end here. I believe we have no more than 1 minute left under the safety car, and then we're gonna green light, go racing. Very interested to see what Kriegsman does with both of the driver X bearing down on him. It doesn't look like he's backing up from the safety car. Maybe he's going to slow down all the way up into the line and then go, which he is allowed to do unless the green light is shown. Which I do think is the strategy, because if you head off, if you start backing up the safety car right now and you head off of the last turn, then Jimenez is just going to get a huge slipstream down the straight, and then you're going to be under pressure. Where if you take it slowly, go patient, you just wait for the green light, then he won't get that much of a slipstream, but it will be harder to get Jimenez off of rhythm. And possibly
But
miss
let's
the start.
see
So.
what they do. Coming through the final corner, Tico Kriegsman still warming up his tires a little bit. And through the final corner, let's see if he guns it off the line. As it doesn't look like he does, and he is indeed just going to wait for the last possible moment, and indeed we have gone green. So Tico Kriegsman getting a bit of a jump there off of the guys behind him, who I think weren't really expecting so much. But saying that, Jimenez is going to try and look up the inside, and it looked like it was very close there for those cars potentially battling all over. It looks like a couple of other drivers, looks like no other major incidents yet, although further down I believe that was Eric Beddoes who sorry, Arturo, who almost lost the rear end there, which is going to allow Steve Bunting to maybe try and make a move up the inside, with Vincent Saint and Jeremy Lapanis battling side by side through the S's as well. So it seems to be all kicking off further down the grid here, and what that means is we're going to have to try and keep our eyes peeled for absolutely everyone, as further up the field we've got Danny O'Keefe and Jake Potts battling it out here going into turn number 11 before the back straight. We're going to see whether or not either of them make a move, but I think Jake Potts is rightly so going to hold off, use that slipstream down this very, very long back straight, and see if he can maybe make a move into turn number 12. And if he can, what that'll mean is he has the inside line for turn 12, but maybe the outside line for turn 13 and 14. Depends on how aggressively they defend, but Jake Potts is really going to try and send it in there, and it's going to force Danny O'Keefe into a mistake locking it up, and I believe we'll see James Miller try and make a move on the inside there as well. But James backing off a little bit and allows Danny O'Keefe a bit of space, but maybe not too much, as Darius is bearing down on him. So James needs to be careful, keep one eye in front and one eye behind as well, because he needs to attack but also defend from the driver who is currently closest to him, who is Darius. So Darius obviously looking to try and find anywhere to overtake here through turn number 19. Not able to do anything just yet, but get a good run out of 19 and into 20 when we may see a move being made, but doesn't look like anything of it just yet, as yeah, I mean, in general, that restart went as well as it could have for Tico Kriegsman. He's almost extended the gap to a full second already, and everyone else seems to just be battling like absolutely crazy behind. James Miller taking a really tight inside line here, and Darius trying to swoop though a long way around the outside, and I believe that's going to allow Jackson Carr to also come in on the action, as that number 97 Ariga car is going to try and maybe make a move up the inside through the S's, but backs off and now has to just follow nice and closely through this S's section. Very difficult to overtake, and James Miller is almost seeming to push Darius through a couple of these corners and looks to go up the inside. Darius, in fair respect to him, does leave the room, but doesn't look like James found anything just yet. Coming out of that corner and into turn 11, we'll see if anybody makes a move on each other, mainly between these two, Darius and James Miller. James Miller looks for it, but nothing doing there. And then coming down onto the back straight, I imagine James is going to be kicking it off all over again.
Wow, what an absolute crazy restart. Jake Potts sending it in on Danny O'Keefe, who goes wide. Kriegsman just absolutely running away. Just has all of the pace this weekend. Nobody can catch him. We see Barris still staying within that slipstream. It looks like he is gaining a couple tenths here and there, but everyone behind is just absolutely leaving no quarter. We saw 2 wide through the S's on restart, lock up, and then James Miller just falling through the field. I mean, it's so hard once you get overtaken once to stop that momentum, because once you leave it open, everybody wants a piece.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And especially through a section like the S's, as we mentioned before, if you sacrifice your line through one part of it, guess what's going to happen? Everyone else hasn't, so they're just going to keep sending it at you, and unfortunately, because you just don't have that pace and you're sacrificing your line, it's going to mean you're just going to have to keep dropping back. But this battle seems to be our closest so far, with Jackson Carr getting quite a good exit there out of the final corner. We may see him go for a move into turn number 1. James Miller, aware of it, goes very defensive on the inside line, and what I'm seeing from a lot of these drivers is an incredibly tight line through turn number 1, going extremely really defensive, but not allowing anybody up the inside and actually compromising their lines more often than not, and then through the S's section having to do a really big defense. But Jackson Carr just not able to really find anything, so has to back off through the S's section as we see the car almost looked like it was slipping out there a little bit and doing almost a four-wheel drift through part of the corner. So yeah, potentially really struggling in these hotter conditions with the setup that he's got on that car.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was saying earlier about that track temp and having that mechanical grip and grip from the tire to the road. It's so important around here, considering how hot it is. You really have to be able to feel where the limit is. And James Malloy constantly taking that extremely tight line into turn one and sacrificing time throughout that whole first sector. I don't think that that's the defensive play right there. If people are faster behind you, you may just want to let them go. As we see, Malloy has a killer slip on Darius. Maybe he's going to send it on the inside. Oh, he races him. Oh, he backs out just the last second.
Yeah, it almost looked like there was going to be contact there between the two of them, but unfortunately nothing doing. And you know, thankful that no contact's made, but obviously James Malloy really wants to get past. But I think last minute he saw that regardless on whether or not he's alongside, Darius is just going to turn in anyway. And I mean, rightly so. You know, Darius couldn't really give him much more room. You know, he had to turn in at some point and avoids a situation where both drivers end up being taken out. And yeah, well driven from James Malloy to maybe back out just at the last second, but what it's going to mean is he's going to have to do it all over again here into turn number one. And well, I'm wondering whether or not we'll see James Malloy being attacked. He seems to be a little bit weak coming out of that final corner in comparison to Jackson Carr behind him, so maybe Jackson Carr is going to try and go up the inside again. It looks like he's a little bit too far back this time, as Jackson Carr a little bit of puff of smoke there as he locks up as well. So James Malloy is now all the way on the back of Darius going through the S's section. We're going to get a really nice onboard here through the S's, so you can see just how tight this section is, and it really is so close to try and overtake these drivers. And what it means is that obviously when you're following, all that dirty air washes the car out, and it's going to prove to be incredibly difficult to follow. But if you can manage to do so, you set yourself really up nicely up into turn number 10 and then into turn number 11 as well, before the big back straight. I mean, it also plays a lot of strategy games where if you know that you can maybe get the move done into turn 11, do you almost back off and wait for the slipstream down here on this long straight into turn number 12, because obviously these cars don't have DRS in the same way that a lot of other cars do, so the slipstream really plays, if anything, a bigger factor than otherwise.
Absolutely, but the thing with that slipstream is you have to be relatively close, I believe. Oh, as we see Darius lock up, going wide, side by side with James Malloy. We'll see if we'll be able to have the move stick. Oh, Darius just has the inside line
there as well between Jackson and James. It almost looked as though James tried to, Jackson tried to send it up the inside, and as such, it's going to mean that these three definitely know that each other is really close. And hey, if anybody makes a mistake here, it looks like anyone else is bound to get a result off of it. And this battle is going to, if it keeps up like this for the entire next 20 laps that we've got here around this circuit, this is going to be one hell of a fight.
Absolutely. James Malloy needs to get this move done. They need to figure out this order. They're only losing time to the Kudas behind, and they've already made a huge gap to the cars in front, so they need to figure this out. As we see James Malloy going deep into turn one on braking. Jackson Carr holding it around the outside on Darius. Darius lost out there on the defensive line.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, it almost looked as though Darius was lifting off down on that start-finish straight, maybe picking up a slowdown penalty or something, but it looked like he almost just went to that inside line and just tried to just lift off and maybe serve that that slowdown penalty, and as such cost him a massive amount of time. Obviously, I don't know if that is true, but yeah, I mean, it looks as though his car is now, because this is now Brandon Walker's also trying to attack Darius up the inside here of turn number 11, and making that move look relatively easy. It looks as though almost Darius maybe has a little bit of damage, or at least isn't able to get the same sort of straight line speed as a lot of these other drivers. And I wonder if there is anything actually going on with that Local's car. But saying that, he is managing to go alongside him down the start-finish straight, and does, yeah, get past that back straight down into turn number 12. So
That
yeah,
is a
interesting.
pretty vicious defensive overtaking maneuver that he put on Walker there. I believe when he locked up, I believe what's happening with Darius's car is when he locked up, he overheated that front right, and he's just not able to get the grip that he can around these left-hand corners with all that load. I think once his tires start to cool down, maybe within 2 to 3 laps, we'll see him start coming back up the field. But right now, Darius is in survival mode. And all it takes is just that one lockup, that one mistake, and then all that momentum that you've built up just gets thrown right out the window, and you're battling 2 positions behind where you once were after your lockup.
Yeah, and I mean, that lockup has cost him 2 positions, and is going to mean that Jackson Carr so far is our biggest gainer out of everyone so far in this race, up 5 positions. And yeah, I mean, great race from him so far. But you know, maybe Darius, as you said, has to settle down a little bit, cool those tires off, and really start to just try and relax into this race. Obviously, won't get that live tire information that maybe you may see teams get in F1 with all of the fancy little displays that they have, because these F3 cars don't seem to have that option available to them. So instead, just has to focus on just what he can feel through the steering. Much more of more of an involved driver atmosphere there, I think, for these cars, for these guys. And yeah, as you say, like, these F3 cars, they're quick, right? And they rely a lot on the downforce that they generate. But also, I think it's a lot more of a pure motorsport than say F2 or F1, where, you know, there are more downforce elements, and the car almost seems to provide more of the grip than what the driver can do. And it's less about how much the driver is making the car work, and more how much the driver can feel confident in the downforce generated. Whereas this seems to be the opposite way. If you want to carry the momentum through corners, definitely, and really push to see if you can find absolutely everything out of the cars. And I believe that's what's going to be going through Darius's head right now, is just, hey, I need to run away from these CUDA guys behind me. I don't want them chasing me, because they're gonna be all over me if I'm not careful, and then, you know, I won't be able to catch up to the likes of Jackson Carr, who is already quite a way ahead. As we see on the onboard, you see that gap there seems to almost be a full turn coming out of turn number 19 into 20, and yeah, that is a long way back. But down the straight, we're going to see Brandon Walker and Julie Redmond, obviously teammates. So whether or not there's going to be any team strategy playing a factor between those two, we'll wait and see. But it looks as though both of them are just sort of keeping in tow, setting very, very similar lap times. So I imagine they're pretty happy with how they're running so far, and just want to maybe work together to catch up to the back of Darius instead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have a pretty healthy gap behind them. Their only motive right now is just to move forward as quickly as possible. With Julie Redmond, he's just gonna follow Walker and not try and push him too hard. Just try and stay in that slip in case there's a mess up. But yeah, what were you were saying about the F2 having more aerodynamic grip than the F3? I believe that is true. I think the F3 is there's more balance that you have to put into the car. You can't just throw it into a corner like you can with an F2 or even an F1 car. You really have to feel that mechanical grip, because you can't just rely on the aerodynamics to save you. You really have to find the balance, find the sweet spot. As it doesn't look like there's oh, unfortunately, as we see a car.
I believe that is Eric Beddoes that we saw on the side of the track there, who has indeed come back to the pit lane. So unfortunately, I think I saw I actually think I saw a tire coming off there, which is not great. Definitely need all 4 tires on the car here to go quickly. So yeah, back into the pit lane and maybe out of this race.
Yeah, that's incredibly unfortunate, but the F3 is a car that you really have to balance, and you really have to feel what you're able to do and what you're not. As we see, Darius has caught up to Malaire and has passed him, and Malaire is just falling down the ranks still. He's just not able to keep up that pace with everybody else. Maybe he'll send a move into turn 1, but at this point, if I was James, I would not be playing this. have to remain calm. Just try stick to the car in front of you as best as you can to get away from the cars behind.
One
As it's
thing to
evident.
note is Victor Barris is currently dropping massively from where he was. There was potentially an off track that he had, which is going to prove to push him down further in the order as Darius and James Miller are now battling each other. I believe Darius has actually got past James Miller there, so now wait and see whether or not James can come back at him. But yeah, Victor Barris down 14 positions, now down and taking a very long pit stop, so not sure whether there was any damage done to his car, and as such that's why he's so far down the order. But yeah, I mean, that is very unfortunate if there was any damage indeed to that car.
That's incredibly disheartening to see him down there. Fortunately, we still have Jimenez up there to try and give us a fight for P1, but Kriesman is just absolutely dominating this race. As we see James shoving it up the inside, Darius just gives him the room. Oh, and James spins around under braking. Oh, that
And
is...
I believe there was also another driver involved in that incident. I believe that was one of the CUDA drivers getting involved, and unfortunately causing a little bit of a collision there between the three of them. And unfortunately, that will mean that James misses out on an opportunity. Did try for what I would have thought was an opportunistic move, and didn't really pay off. So unfortunately, James Miller comes off pretty bad out of that one, and indeed has gone now back into the pit lane. And yeah, I believe we'll see him probably take a fast repair and maybe get back out there, or yeah, just maybe doesn't have any left and has to sit there for however long that repair time looks like it's going to be.
Yeah, if I was James, I would just go ahead and take the pit stop now. You are at the far forward end of the pit stop window, but if you had a spin, you don't want to drive around. Those tires are going to be shot. You don't want to drive around in those tires and lose all of that extra time just to get to a further pit window. So yeah, I think he's making the correct decision and just taking the pit stop and just getting back out and just trying to salvage anything he can at this point. As we see Jackson Carr in 5th and Danny O'Keefe in 4th, still very competitive. And Jimenez still within a second of Kriesman. He is just pressuring him. It's what I was saying earlier. You have to be patient around this track. If you're not patient, you may overextend yourself, as we saw James do, and go for, like you said, maybe a bit too opportunistic of a move, and then you lose out. You lose that momentum that you gained. Whereas Jimenez is slowly putting on that pressure, just never really outside of the way, as we see Julie Redmond.
Yeah, I was just about to comment on Julie Redmond's move there on John Rowland, and yeah, I mean, it seemed like it was a relatively easy move for Julie, you know, just following the slipstream and then make the move down the straight and then just outbrake your opponent into turn 12. And as such, you know, she's now ahead and going to be pushing to see if she can now catch up to the back of Patrick Olsen. But if John has anything to say about it, obviously he's going to try and follow as much as he can, because you know, he really wants that 9th place. You know, it'll be double points for him, currently sitting in P10, so you know, you're getting, you know, double the amount of points that you would otherwise, and that could mean everything for the championship standings, especially down, you know, this sort of end of the grid. You know, every point will matter when it comes to the championship, and if you can finish top 10 in the drivers' championship with such a large grid, I mean, that is a pretty amazing result in itself.
Yeah, that's very impressive, especially with such a competitive grid like it is today. We can see this top 10 is just making very aggressive moves, doing all they can just to scrape together any points they can, but they can't overheat those tires. They can't overextend themselves, otherwise they'll lose out. But we see most drivers being patient, waiting for that proper move, and getting it done, like Julie Redmond. I mean, that was textbook overtake. Just take the same line, wait for them to go over to the left to follow the line, and then you just send it on the inside with the slip. I think that was absolutely textbook and a beautiful overtake.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's get back on board with our leader, because I believe Antonio Jimenez has now really caught up to the back of Tico Kriegsman. Jumped on board with Tico and wasn't expecting to jump on board with Antonio and see them so close, but yeah, I mean, they're really close on track now, and this will be the battle for the lead of the race. So we'll keep on board with this for a couple of laps and just see what these drivers can do into turn number 20, see if Antonio can really put the pressure on. Last couple of laps, it looks like Antonio has had the pace to overtake, but not finding anywhere to do it, and once again proving that, going a couple tenths quicker, and with the slipstream here into turn number 1, not too close to make a move, but definitely looks like he was going to send it, and that was going to be very opportunistic if he managed to actually get his nose up in front there. May have missed the braking zone and ended up flying straight past, but did manage to get the car stopped in time. Now through the S's, all he's going to have to do is try to follow as close as he possibly can, and if he can get a good run, that means into turn number 11, coming off the exit of this S's section, you know, you may be able to see him make a move or sit behind, and then down the straight into turn number 12, we may see an even bigger move being made, and we will stay on board actually here on the roll bar cam and see whether or not we can actually see that move being made down the straight. It looks like he lost a little bit of time through the S's section, and it looks as though he's going to try and send a move, and looks very aggressive. Maybe Antonio Jimenez, maybe even just trying to scare Tico into a mistake a little bit, and Tico Kriegsman doing a very good job of just not really paying much attention in the mirror and just, you know, trying to block out that what looks to be very aggressive moves. And it looks as though anytime Antonio gets close, he manages to try and make a move that looks like it's going to be something, and then just ends up costing him probably a bit too much on the exit of the corner, as Tico just manages to get the drive out of the corner compared to Antonio.
Yeah, I absolutely think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think, oh, this may be the move. I think he's just scaring Tico. He's just trying to get him offline, to get him as slow as possible, keep him as close as he can for that straight overtake on the straight. I think that's his plan. I don't think he's actually going to try and send it this hard. So this is going to be, oh, he's getting a great run out of these last two corners. Can he hold it? Is he going to scare Tico? Oh, this may be it. Oh, he gets a terrible run out, but the slip may make up for it. We'll see as Tico's swerving across the track trying to break it. He's going defensive. Oh, as Antonio just sends it on the inside, this may be it. Pushes Tico wide. Can he hold it? Tico just holding his own around the outside. Absolutely incredible racing we have right here. This is far from over as we go through the S's. As you were saying earlier, the dirty air here, you just have to survive the dirty air. Just try and slightly offset your line so you're not directly behind the car in front, and get as much downforce as you can. But wow, this is shaping up to be a photo finish if it continues on like this. We'll see how strategies play out if Jimenez wants to try the overcut, because Kriegsman is definitely not overcutting Jimenez. This is gonna be incredibly interesting on strategy. We're 15 laps into a 28 lap race. Pits should be starting to come into their minds, but last week Jimenez did overcut Potts for the win, so maybe he's going to wait for Tico to pit and then continue to try and overcut him, thinking that he's faster in front of Tico rather than behind Tico.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, one thing that I do worry about with Antonio being so aggressive and driving so aggressively is the fact that those tires are taking an absolute beating if he's trying to just get the same sort of speed but taking tighter lines. You know, you see him coming out of some of these corners, he's sliding all over the place, as we see if you look there through turn number 17 and 18, you know, you see the car slides a bit and you hear it as he's coming through turn number 19 as well. Like, the back end does not seem planted at all. What that's going to mean is that his rear tires are just going to be complaining the entire time, and you see him wrestling with the wheel in comparison to Tico, who seems like he's just incredibly smooth and just doesn't really have anything left. you know, it doesn't seem like the car's complaining about what he wants it to do, as we're going to see Antonio Jimenez try and go up the inside once again, and again, we're going to see Tico Kriegsman go around the outside and keep it there. And again, it's that thing that I keep saying, Antonio seems to be going so aggressive on the moves to the inside that he has to overslow for the corner on the apex, and then that means he can't get on the throttle early enough to really overtake Kriegsman. And I think what he has to consider is maybe, instead of trying to go for these really late lunges, is instead have to really start to just settle the car into the corner first, get a good run on the exit, and maybe attack coming out of the corner as opposed to into it.
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, we've seen him just racing Tieko to the apex. I mean, you are able to do that, but corner after corner, lap after lap, I mean, you're just sending your tire temps way up. You're not going to be able to consistently do that. He needs to be patient, and I think that's what we're seeing now. He's just trying to scare Tieko now. He's not actually trying to get the move on like we've seen in the previous 2 laps. But yeah, those tire temps have to be skyrocketing, just constantly sending these fake moves like that one, as we just saw on Tieko, to just try and scare him and just trying to get him offline. But what an impressive drive from Tieko, unshaken, just continuously holding his own against possibly one of the better F3 drivers that we have on the grid, and just not taking any guff, holding it around the outside, putting him behind. I mean, this is absolutely phenomenal racing from Tieko and Jimenez that we have right here. But yeah, I think Jimenez is slowly starting to fall back on that pace. I think he got a bit over eager when he had a big gain of a couple tenths. I think the move to make is just out of turn 1. I think that's where this race changes hands, if it does.
Yeah, absolutely. But talking about the pit stop battle, obviously we have had a couple of people, as we see Antonio Jimenez try and go for a very late move, and they touch as well. Thankfully, no major contact with Tico Kriegsman and Antonio, but Antonio did lift up there as he hit into the back end, and that's going to probably damage his front wing and cause maybe a little bit of understeer of that car now, which, you know, might offset the oversteering nature that we are seeing from the car, or potentially make it even worse. But again, that's what I was talking about, being so aggressive. Eventually Tico's just going to turn in, you know, is just not going to pay attention to when you're sending it, because you've been trying to send it so often, and it's just going to turn in, and if you hit him, well, that's going to be on you. And you know, that's exactly what we saw there, and the gap has now all of, you know, extended back to Kriegsman's favor, and it's just going to keep going that way, I imagine, with Kriegsman not really paying any attention. But I want to make a shout out to the iRacing netcode on that one. You know, ever since the iRacing netcode got changed, I mean, if you imagine that a couple weeks ago, I'm sure we would have seen both drivers flying in the air.
Absolutely. I mean, the netcode has been excessively improved from where it was, but I hate to say this, but I think that's Jimenez's race right there. I mean, that was a huge lockup. It doesn't look like he has any front wing damage, which is incredibly lucky, but that front left has just got to be completely fried now, considering we only have 10 laps left in the race and neither of these drivers have pitted yet. This is going to be incredibly interesting to see what they do. With Walker being 28 seconds behind, we're not going to see any other drivers really pull up. As I say that, Redmond is up into 4th and Potts down into 5th, as we see Kriegsman finally taking the pit stop. This is where the win is going to come out. Is Jimenez able, with those cooked tires no less, able to overcut Kriegsman, where we've seen Kriegsman being so consistent this entire race? I don't want to make a call one way or another, but oh no, as Jimenez spins, loses it on his cooked tires. Oh, that
I think is gonna definitely show that Tico is gonna come out ahead now, and indeed Tico's already come out of the pit lane, so I believe that will be it. That will be race said and done, I imagine, and Tico is probably going to come out in a position where he can now take this race to the very end and settle into quite a nice rhythm. But yeah, I mean, most drivers have pit now. Brandon Walker is yet to pit, and as well as Vincent Saint has yet to pit, but every other driver has come into the pit lane or is in the pit lane currently. Julie Redmond just stopping on her marks, and then same with Sean Roberts as well behind, so they'll probably come out maybe around that sort of 9th, 10th place mark. But we'll wait and see what that looks like. And I'll tell you what, Tico Kriegsman's pit lane time looked very fast indeed. 33.3 seconds in the pit lane, which is the fastest of anyone so far. So I think he was really pushing it, going in there and really trying to make as much time up as possible, which is obviously something that I think a lot of people underestimate, is just how important that is for a driver to get that pit stop right and to really push it into the pit lane to find every single second you can. Because, you know, as much as you want to find all the seconds out on track, you also need to find those seconds in the, you know, off the track as well. And if you can get a really good stop and you can hit your marks and you don't get slowed down by any bad pit stops, then you may end up actually finding a second or even 2 seconds out of seemingly thin air. So Jimenez is going around again, which is an interesting call considering what he's done to his tires already. So yeah, obviously thinks the tires are okay enough to go again, or is just going to try and extend the gap as much as he can to Tico Kriegsman, who is currently 21 seconds-ish behind. So we'll have to monitor that gap as and when it arrives.
Fortunately, he is unsafe on a pit stop, where yeah, if the pit stops are so incredibly important. I mean, if Jimenez had not has spin and Kriegsman, you know, hits the brake a little too early, maybe he's like, I don't know, in like 3rd gear, too high of a gear, and he hits the brakes early, that's a second that you lose to your rival, and that's the difference between a race win and a race P2. But I think Kriegsman has this in the bag. I think if he just remains consistent, just keeps doing his lap times, I think Jimenez has kind of done this to himself. I hate to say that, but he's sent every move that he possibly could without regard for his tires, and it came back to bite him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to make a shout out to a couple of the other people further down the grid, like Vincent Saint right now. Hasn't stopped yet, but was up 8 positions, does come in for the pit stops finally after, you know, 18 laps on those tires. So I imagine that wasn't feeling particularly great. But yeah, I mean, great result from Vincent Saint so far. You know, even if he finishes, you know, 14th or 15th, you know, he managed to really step it up in the race. And Jackson Carr up 7 positions from where he started, up into 5th as well in this race. So amazing result for him. And Danny O'Keefe, as you mentioned, up there in 4th, and Jake Potts as well for the Lumos guys, currently in 3rd place, as we see Antonio Jimenez does jump into the pit lane. So yeah, I think we're going to start to get near now to the end of the race, where we're going to see, you know, what the true order looks like for the last couple of laps, and see whether or not any late battles develop. As you know, we'll keep trying to monitor the times, but it looks like everyone is now settling into a pretty consistent rhythm. And yeah, Tico Kriegsman's just going to come around the final corner, and provided that back marker ahead of him doesn't cause any issues, that'll be a pretty easy overtake, I imagine, without any sort of issues. But we'll take a look at that and see if Antonio Jimenez, he's actually on the inside, so maybe going that 1 lap longer actually helped. And yeah, it's going to mean that Tico's going to be battling with him on pit exit. So I'm not sure whether or not Tico Kriegsman got held up on his out laps, but yeah, I mean, Antonio Jimenez did an amazing job on the overcut and somehow made that work. I mean, the pit stop time going in Tico's favor, but it looks as though the actual on-track speed went in Antonio's favor.
Yeah, that's incredibly surprising, but Tico still is on warm tires, and Jimenez is having to defend on his outlap, which is never a good sentence to say. And Tico is just, if he's able to hold it on those warmer tires, he has the advantage here, but he's got to be aggressive. We saw how aggressive Jimenez was. Tico needs to get a switchback. He needs to get better grip on exit, which is what we see here, and he is starting to pull away. Is he going to be able to hold it? These two drivers have just been going back and forth through the corners, neither giving a quarter. Like, this is incredible racing. I'm very excited to see who comes out at the top of this corner, as we see Tico holding that inside. Jimenez having to hold around the outside. He's going to go for the switchback. No, he goes wide, and Tico back into the lead on the warmer tires. Incredible racing, but it is not over yet. We still have almost 8 laps of hard racing, and Jimenez is only going to get warmer tires from here on out. Tico just needs to remain smooth, remain calm, and just keep doing what he's doing. I mean, he's dominated this race. He set the pace this whole race. He just needs to bring it home and finish it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tico Kriegsman just needs to do what he was doing earlier on when Antonio was battling him so hard before. You know, he needs to just keep running at the same pace he was. But already, you see the moment that he's managed to get out in front. Already, there's a 1.5 second gap. So those warmer tires really going in the favor of Kriegsman and really starting to push for everything he can. But there is another battle developing on track here between Julie Redman and Darius. A little bit closer battle here into turn number 15. We'll see if Julie can make anything of it, but currently nothing found yet. Into turn number 16, obviously going to be flat out, and with the dirty air, I mean, maybe the car gets a little bit of a slide, but I imagine that setup is made with that in mind. And we're going to see hopefully this CUDA driver actually try to maybe make a couple moves up into P8 with Darius now trying to just battle as hard as he can and really put his really just keep his position. He's started 8th on the grid, currently 8th position. Yeah, he's lost out to his teammate Vitaltus and Brandon maybe as well ahead of him, but and then Jackson Carr also coming through the field. But yeah, I mean, he's managed to overtake the people who have got past him for the most part. And yeah, I mean, Brandon's running Darius is running a pretty amazing race for himself. And then same with Julie, keeping that 9th place off the start and keeping it nice and close, and it's probably going to try and keep it nice and close all the way to the end and maybe get that 8th place and go up a position from where she started.
Yeah, absolutely. Redmond is a very conservative driver. She doesn't like to make big sends. She really likes to know that her move is going to get done before she sends it. She doesn't like to lose time behind assumptions. So we'll see if Darius does make a mistake. As we saw earlier, he did have that lockup. So if he just keeps it cool, maybe he'll be able to keep Redmond behind, but Redmond just seems to be gaining on him every single turn. We'll see if she sends a big move as she's going down the straight in the slip. Darius is going defensive. Is Julie going to send it on the inside? She does. Oh, she doesn't have the space. She just goes back to the racing line.
Yeah, it almost looked as though she was trying to sell him a dummy almost, and Darius not really thinking anything of it just yet, but Julie definitely has the pace in the final sector here, and maybe through turn 15 we'll see a move, and she gets incredibly close to the back end of Darius as Darius clips the sausage curb and unfortunately sacrifices speed. That's going to mean that Julie Redman gets the inside of turn number 16 and then into turn number 17 and 18 as well, and does make that move flat out through those corners, but he's going to come back on the inside, Darius, into turn number 19, and Julie goes the long way around the outside and actually does an impressive job to hold off there from Daniel's move, and Darius's move, and yeah, Julie's now up into 8th place with Vitaltus coming in for the pits. So actually Vitaltus coming in for I think that will be his 2nd pit stop, which is going to mean that Julie's promoted up into 7th instead of 8th like we originally thought.
That's a phenomenal overtake from Julie Redmond. And last week she was promoted up to a podium off of Hungary and a couple of drives-through that drivers had. So she's just going to have to defend. She has the capability. We've seen it. She just has to defend, and she does have the pace, but Darius is an incredibly aggressive driver. Is Julie going to fall for his dummy throws? It looks like he's just falling back through the field and just losing time to Julie, who's just on a steamer right now. I think Julie's pretty set where she is.
Yeah, I mean, Julie's car looks like it's very planted as well, and I imagine that Julie will be using the same sort of setup as his teammate Brandon Walker, who I imagine that the CUDA guys all share setups with each other and definitely talk about it on race weekends, and as such, if Julie finds something that works for her, then she's going to end up with a result that actually is where she probably should be, as Darius is getting a little bit close here and does try to go the inside of turn number 12, and Julie locks up as well and has to go wide to avoid any contact, and that's going to let Darius back through. So all of that hard work that Julie did to get the move made in the first place all gone on the next lap in through that slipstream down the back straight into turn number 12. And I'll tell you what, that corner, turn number 12, coming off that long back straight, for these F3 cars, that is a massive overtaking opportunity.
Absolutely. We've seen tons of moves come through there. That's even a bigger overtaking maneuver than, or overtaking point than turn 1, which is surprising. But yeah, these F3 cars just love that overtake though, as Julie's just on the tail end of Darius. Maybe a little bit of a tap, but she is not giving it up that easily. We still got 5 laps of racing here, 4 laps of racing here. This is not over just yet. I'm surprised that Darius is still able to keep going after that, as we see a bit of a tail end slide. He just seems to be fighting the car so much to get it through these corners. Well, Julie just seems very planted, very calm, very smooth. I would not be surprised if Julie was able to get that position back from Darius, but Darius does have the capability to hold it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it almost reminds us of this Tico-Antonio battle, with Julie being Tico in this case and having the car that's really working for her and where she's really smooth with it and doesn't seem to be fighting it that much, whereas Darius seems to be the super aggressive driver and really just sort of sending the car everywhere. Even if the car doesn't really want to send it in, he's still going to try and force it to make that move, and is fighting with the car every single chance he gets. And obviously that does play into a lot of different driving styles, as you know, maybe Julie likes a car that's a bit more understeery, that can provide her with the confidence that she needs to really actually send it through a couple of these corners, whereas Darius likes one that's a bit more on edge, a bit more skittish, lets him slide a little bit through the corners and really play with the car, as Jimenez, trying to chase onto the back of Tico Kriegsman, does set a new fastest lap of the race, 158.5, which again, we're going to look at bonus points as well here. You know, bonus point for fastest lap and bonus point for safest driver, all things to consider. And if you're making car contacts, or you know, you're picking up a lot of off tracks, as it's easy to do around here, then you know, you may end up with a situation where you know, your championship rival and the one who is 1 point behind you maybe picks up safest driver or fastest lap, and all of a sudden that deficit comes to an equal, even if you do you know, finish ahead, and no one really moves anywhere.
Absolutely, and Jimenez is only within 7/10 of Kriesman, so that fight up front is really starting to heat up. But it looks like Julie's just kind of staying where she's at. She's not really making heavy progress through Darius. Maybe she scared herself a little bit when she got so close on exit of the last turn, as we go back on board with Jimenez, who's just chasing Kriesman down with no regard. I mean, I've been looking at the relative, and he's just been sending it and sending it after every corner, and just trying to scare Tieko. But he's been doing this all race. Tieko knows what he's going to do. It's not going to work anymore. I mean, Tieko held it around the outside, what, 3-4 times on T1?
Yeah, absolutely.
From a Jimenez sense, like,
yeah,
it's going to be absolutely fine for Tieko.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, even still, I think Antonio has now got it into his head that, you know, the only way he's going to get past is if he sends these opportunistic moves, because he can't overtake him on pure pace, because it seems like even though he's got the lap times, for some reason he just can't find the exit speed that he needs to overtake, so he needs to do it on corner entry instead. And you know, maybe as a driver you're starting to figure that out, that actually, you know, my car maybe is set up to be a bit faster in corner entry but not quite as fast on corner exit, and as such I need to make sure that I can get the move made on the apex, almost cover off the exit of the corner and really force the driver in front to slow down. And we see it so many times with Antonio going so deep under braking and having to slow and not getting on the throttle as early as we see Tico doing. And again, it means that, yeah, the lap times are similar, but every single time it seems Tico is able to just find a bit more time on exit. And when you're racing, to be honest, I'm going to favor exit speed over entry speed every day of the week.
Absolutely. I mean, slow in, fast out is the tried and true message of every racer. GT, Formula, slow in, fast out. You just have to focus on that exit speed, because if you don't have that, you can send it into a corner almost 20 miles an hour faster, but if that exit speed is compromised, then there's no point. You're just getting diminished returns. And I think that's what Jimenez is starting to see right now, and I think that's what Tieko is starting to pick up on too. We see Jimenez constantly gaining time, you know, 10ths, 2/10, sometimes 3/10 in these quarters, and Tieko is just unmovable. He knows that Jimenez, his only strength is on corner entry, not really on corner exit, with such like a unstable car that we've seen, as we see the back end kind of slip out there. But I am worried about Jimenez. He does have new tires, but he's once again sending all of these moves. Is he starting to overheat them? He doesn't have to really worry about where, but That tire temp cannot be helping him out around here.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we could play it down to like a driver style thing, right? Of where maybe Antonio's driving style is that of just being super aggressive and is really starting to push everything he can. But even still, you know, it's going to have, as you said, like diminished returns eventually, where, you know, even if you are keeping the same sort of lap times, if you're driving so aggressively, making a move on a driver that is so patient and is so defensive like Tico is, you know, you can see it in the way that Tico drives. He's very, very calm when he drives. You know, he's not pushing the car at all. The car isn't doing anything that it doesn't want to do. And as such, you know, he's able to just really focus on the exit of every corner and really start to push it. I think I saw a great example of this at I believe it was Nürburgring, the GP circuit, where, you know, if you focus on the exit of every corner, going down these long straights, you're going to be gaining so much time because your exit speed is so much higher that if your acceleration is the same as the car behind you, which in this sort of car class is going to be the case, as Antonio looks for a very, very late move there and almost forces Tico into a little mistake. We saw the rear end of Tico's car step out a little bit as the back marker does indeed get out of the way, and rightly so. I think Vincent Saint needs to just really step out of the throttle and get away from this battle, because this could end in tears with how aggressive these drivers are being. And we'll see if Tico maybe tries to make a move up the inside back again, and he does take that inside line. And once again, look at the exit speed. He went in, coasted through the middle of the corner, and then just got on the throttle earlier, and then Jimenez just had no way to defend.
Absolutely. It's just a battle of driving styles right now. We did see Jimenez lock up as he's sending it on the inside, but Tico knows this. He knows the space. Wow, just no quarter left. Tico knows the space that Jimenez is going to give him, and he can operate within that. And if anything, I think Jimenez is starting to react to where Tico's going. I think Jimenez is starting to find out his limitations. I mean, with only 3 laps left, he's set every move in his playbook around here at Tico, and Tieko's just able to hold it on corner exit. I mean, racing you to the apex will get you there, but it doesn't matter if you don't come out first on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. But it looks like Antonio's doing you know, what I like to call throwing the kitchen sink at him, and you know, it's where you just literally send everything you've got. You leave absolutely nothing left in the kitchen. You've got nothing left to throw at the guy, and as such, it means that, you know, the driver in front knows everything that you're going to do. You know, he's seen it all before. He's seen it for the last how many laps now? You know, 10, 15 laps that we've been racing, and you know, it's just going to mean that Tico's ready for it. You know, he's just going to focus on the exit of the corner and do a driving style that is very much, you know, I'm going to let you take the inside of the corner. I'm just going to coast around the outside. I'm going to get on the throttle early, and I'm going to make it an absolute nightmare to try and pass me, because you just won't have the same sort of speed that I do.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that's incredibly frustrating for Jimenez. I can only imagine racing someone to the apex every time, just barely getting out in front of them, and then you just see them go around the outside. It's got to be incredibly demoralizing, and you know, confidence does come into factor when you have to remain calm and make all of these precise movements that driving the F3 calls for. As we saw, Jimenez going over the sausage curb, unsettling his car. He's getting frustrated. If he has not already been frustrated, it's starting to eke into his driving a little bit. But still, Tico just remaining calm, just taking his line, just letting Antonio do what he needs to, but not letting it affect him. I believe we've only seen Tico go defensive once this entire race, going around that last lap when he his rear got a bit grippy, lost a bunch of that grip. And Tico just knows what to do, but with Jimenez in 4/10 on the last lap, this is where it's in. This is where you have to send. If you have the move in your playbook, you've got to do it now for that win.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether or not it's a dummy or a just maybe forcing him into a mistake, as we see Tico almost look like he went way too deep. I think Tico was expecting a move, and Antonio instead not sending it and holding it back off. And what that's going to mean is that going through the S's, these two guys are going to be very, very close indeed. And if Antonio can keep close here, if he can keep close through turn 10, through turn 11, then what that's going to mean is down the back straight, he may be able to make a move into turn number 12. And if he can do do that, the last sector's so difficult to pass. It's, you know, maybe even with the exception of turns 16 and 17 where it's flat out, and if you get the inside line, it's a move made, but Antonio Jimenez is going to try and send it up the inside once again, and it looks like Tico Kriegsman saw that coming from a mile away and just instead decides to just take his natural line, knows he's not going to be too close, and yeah, 0.5 of a second gap, which is going to mean that maybe into turn 12 there's nothing left. And I think if Antonio wants to make anything happen, he's got to do it right here, he's got to do it right now. There's going to be nowhere left, and indeed he does try to absolutely send it through turn 10, through turn 12, and they absolutely made contact, side pod to side pod, and that sent Tico Kriegsman miles up into the air and almost flipped the car.
Wow, that's incredibly unfortunate. That is a very dirty move from Jimenez. I mean, absolutely didn't leave Tico any room, just sent it with no regard. I mean, that's disgusting. It's amazing that he came out of that with no damage, but that's not how I would want to
I believe
win.
he is letting off, and he may let Tico through on the last lap as he is coming into the pit lane, so maybe even picked up a meatball flag off the end of that one. But also Tico Kriegsman comes into the pit lane, so maybe both drivers picked up a meatball and they collide in the pit lane as well. I'm not sure if that's retaliation from Kriegsman, but that is something that you do not want to see coming near the end of this race, as both drivers are now in the pit lane and finish in the pit lane 1 and 2, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with the order. That was very, very interesting end to the race there.
Wow, I don't remember the last time two drivers that were in a league of their own almost 20 seconds up the field just crashed into each other like that, and then again on pit. But for now, that was an incredibly impressive race from both Antonio and Kriegsman. Unfortunate how it ended, but I think Kriegsman had that race in the bag. I mean, he was dominant that whole time. Antonio just threw everything at him, and then Jimenez, that was just not a move. He just outbraked himself. He would have gone off track if he had not touched Tico.
But let's take a look at the move that actually happened. We'll take a look at it from Tico's viewpoint, as we should see on our left-hand side that out of nowhere, yeah, just incredibly late move from Antonio Jimenez, and yeah, that just meant that Tico had nowhere to go. You know, either turns out of it and loses the position, maybe tries to attack on exit, or does indeed come back in. But yeah, that is unfortunately how that race ended, and yeah, it's not a good result at all for the end of that. It was a really good battle up until that point as well. So yeah, unfortunately it ended the way that it did.
I don't think anybody's very happy with that ending, except maybe Antonio. But that was an impressive drive nonetheless. Incredible racing that entire time. Unfortunately for Barris, I think there would have been more to play if Barris had not had that early contact and pit stop maneuver. So incredible race, but wow, that ending, that gives one pause.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to talk to the drivers in post-race interviews, and we'll see if any driver does indeed come back in for the post-race interviews. But yeah, that end result is something that we are going to have to look at in the future, as you know, we may end up seeing the results of the race get changed. But for now, we will take a look at the race results as it stands at the moment. And I'm not sure if you noticed this on the race results screen, but Antonio Jimenez and Tico Kriegsman having penalties from iRacing, I believe, for not serving the meatball when they could have, pushes both of them down into 5th and 6th in the end. So the race results as it stands at the moment mean that Jake Potts ends up winning the race, yet finishing 3rd over the line. So Jake Potts taking the win, Danny O'Keefe finishing 2nd, and Jackson Carr finishing in 3rd in an absolutely insane end of the race.
I mean, that's why you never can give up on these races. That's why you have to give it everything until the checkered flag. I mean, with almost 3 corners left, both of the leaders wrecked out and had to go through and serve their penalties. And Jake Potts, who's just driven an incredibly consistent race this entire time, comes out on top, and that's racing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where where Jake Potts ends up with, obviously, in terms of the championship standings, because that's going to mean that he actually gets put way up higher. And I believe we'll try and get a interview with him. I'll just see if he is ready for that. If you want to make any other comments as well about what we saw.
I think that was an absolutely phenomenal race from Tieko and Antonio. I mean, they both left everything on the table. It's a shame that they both came into contact like that, but that's racing. As you say, they threw the kitchen sink at him, and unfortunately, they both lost out on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Jake is going to probably be just as confused as we are when we tell him that he actually ended up winning the race and what's going to happen there. But as I say, I'll see whether or not he's ready to be pulled in, and if he is, we will get an interview with him. And yeah, I mean, once again, this track is proving to be it proves that you can race here, and unfortunately, if you race too hard like Antonio was doing, it's going to cause penalties near the end of the race.
Yeah, he lost out on that exchange. I mean, if he just would have been more careful, he would have came home with a P2. But instead, he's coming home P5 and losing almost half of his points. That's not that's not what you want to be doing during a championship battle like we're having. But absolutely incredible race by Potts and O'Keefe and Carr to get that podium position. I'm sure they're all ecstatic right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure they'll notice that when the race results are officially published. And yeah, I mean, we'll drag Potts in here and see what he has to say about it, and talk to him and see what he thinks about the result that ended up going in his favor. Hey Jake, amazing result for yourself. I mean, at the end of the race, we saw a bit of controversy between Antonio Jimenez and Tico Kriegsman, and as such, what it's going to mean is that you actually take home the win of this race. How do you feel about that one?
Completely shocked. I saw them both go in the pits right at the end. I'm like, there's no way they both just got penalties. And I was just trying to fight off Danny O'Keefe the whole race. A lot of credit to him. He was pushing the crap out of me. And then here, lo and behold, I got first place. I'm just as shocked as you guys are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were watching on board the Antonio and Tico battle, and it seemed like Tico was, doing an amazing job defending, and Antonio was doing, was trying to throw everything at him. And unfortunately, Antonio went for a desperation move near the end of the race, and the two collided. And I believe it was either a meatball flag or potentially drive-through penalties that didn't get served by the end of the race, and as such, pushed him down into 5th and 6th. But yeah, I mean, as you were saying, you were battling with Danny O'Keefe for quite a while. It looked like near the end of the race, you managed to get away a bit and just extend the gap and really settle into quite a nice rhythm. So yeah, I mean, amazing result for yourself, taking home P1. I mean, it comes as a surprise. Obviously, you finished 3rd on the road, but hey, it's sometimes that's how it goes, and I'm sure you'll be happy to take the win any way you can get it.
For sure. Yeah, I was just hoping for like a top 5, and then I saw, I might get a 3rd place. I'm like, sweet, I'll take the podium. And then, like I said, I walk away with 1st place. So that's massive points for the team. A couple of the people who were ahead of me in the standings didn't show up today, so that should really help me in the standings. And the constructors, we got double points. James got 9th place, so we're looking in good shape. We just got to keep the streak alive.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it looked like it was quite a hot track out there as well, and I'm not sure if that was playing any part in, because we saw a couple of people really having quite loose setups on the car and really starting to slide the car around. I'm not sure if that was the same for you as well, but yeah, we were definitely seeing a lot of people it looked like very aggressive with the car regarding the hotter conditions.
Struggling the entire race, just trying to keep it on track. That was my goal, so I wasn't able to push at all. At the beginning, I was kind of able to keep up with those guys, and then they just pulled off. And from that point on, I'm just like, keep it on the track, stay alive, make it to the end of the race. And apparently, you can get a P1 with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you keep it on the tarmac the entire race, you can stand a very good chance of ending up winning. And if you keep out of trouble as well, it just has a really great result in the end. And yeah, congratulations to yourself finishing P1. And yeah, I'm sure we'll take a look back and see what happened and see if anything gets adjusted. But hey, I mean, P1 for yourself, you know, as you said, as you mentioned, it's going to help with you in the championship. You say a couple of people ahead of you weren't here, so yeah, you'll take all the points you can get, and yeah, again, amazing results. So congratulations, mate.
Thank you very much, and big shout out to Lumos for helping me get ready for all this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congrats, Pods. Good job.
Thank you, Wesson.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, after that, you know, we'll see him. Hopefully, we'll see you back on the podium again in the future. But yeah, I mean, again, congratulations, and see you next week. Well, actually, no, sorry, not next week. Week after for Monza, I believe, will be the next circuit we go to. So
Some tracks I'm good at. I can't wait to get into the fun half of the season for me. I've struggled with this first half.
yeah, absolutely. But get your low down force setups ready and get ready for the big slipstream battles as well. Hopefully, the long straight here at Kota helped you prepare for what you're going to experience at Monza.
Got to survive turn 1 at Monza. If you can make
Yeah.
it through that, you can make it through anything, because that's a disaster every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, it's not going to be too bad for us here in the IFL. But yeah, once again, mate, congratulations on the P1, and hopefully, we'll see you back here on the podium again at Monza.
Thank you.
Congrats.
But yeah, I mean, regarding the results, I think it's only right that we do talk to Tico near the end and see what he has to say about it. You know, doesn't finish on the podium, but I think we should definitely still talk regardless, and just see what's going through his mind right now.
Absolutely. I have a couple questions for him that I would love to hear his perspective on.
Hey Tico, we're bringing you in here, obviously finishing P6 in the end after what seemed like it was potential penalties at the end of the race, but with contact with Antonio at the end of the race. I'm not sure what your take on that is. Obviously it looked like it was a very opportunistic move, very late move that cost, I guessed in the race, meatball flags. I'm not sure if that was the case in the end.
Yeah, I have no clue really what happened in the end there, but I think we've collided in the pits as well. That's what I've seen, but I didn't notice that. I think he wanted to let me pass. I had to serve a drive-through. But yeah, I have no words.
Yeah, Tieko, that was a very, very rough ending. But I don't think that takes away from your absolutely dominant drive today. I mean, you just showed everybody who's boss. Even with all of the moves that Antonio was throwing your way, you were just remaining calm, cool, holding on the outside, not giving him a quarter. And he threw everything and, as Alyssa was saying, the kitchen sink at you, and you just were coming out on top. And I think that just really frustrated Jimenez. What are your thoughts on how hard he was battling you and all the duds that he was throwing your way?
I mean, it was a nice battle with him. I've been battling for quite a while with him as well in practice sessions, so I know how he drives. I mean, usually he isn't like this aggressive, but like I didn't expect him to do this move as well, because it was quite a long way he had to go. But yeah, the result is quite sad, to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is extremely sad, but once again, I think you've shown everybody who's boss this week at Coda. I mean, absolutely phenomenal drive against Jimenez, who out of frustration just sent a really desperate move on you. Otherwise, you would have had that win. But
It was an all or nothing
unfortunately,
move.
that's pretty. Absolutely, it was an
Yeah,
all or nothing move.
but that's
He would
fine.
not.
I mean, it's fine. Like he can make that move, but I don't like the penalties I've got. I mean, finishing second would be better than I think I'm six now or something. I don't even know.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Like
you
that makes
came
no
up
sense.
with the drive-through, but I
Yeah.
would like to ask, were you struggling? Your car seemed extremely planted, and I think it's a 105 track temp. Were you struggling at all with like tire degradation or
I
over?
was struggling. Yeah.
Seemed like you were extremely planted.
At the end of my stint, I was really struggling with for grip, but I mean, I was just taking it very slowly, going on throttle, and that really worked out. And just being very consistent. That's what I was going for this race, and it paid off. But at the end, it didn't.
Well, you still did get points, so it's not all over. But I think you can go home and be extremely proud of the race that you've raced today. I mean, holding Jimenez back the entire race within 1 second is an incredible feat, and I think you should be proud of today, even with the unfortunate ending. I think you have a lot to look back on and be happy about. So
Yeah, sure.
congratulations.
Thanks.
But yeah, I mean, controversial end to what was an amazing race, and as such, we're gonna see, yeah, we're gonna see hopefully more of the same in 2 weeks' time when we go to Monza. I mean, I'm excited for it, and yeah, I mean, I hope that it's a very good result, and you know, I hope we get some insane racing again, and hopefully a cleaner battle than we had here today and near the end. But yeah, I mean, this league once again proving that we will see action all the way down to the finish line, and yeah, I mean, drama all the way, and you know, we like it here. You know, that's what we like to see. But you know, maybe a little bit less contact next time.
We can only hope. It's Monza next week, so we'll see. We'll see if a safety car comes out before the first turn next week.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, that'll do it from us here. Weston, thank you very much for joining me in the comms box this week, and hopefully we'll see you back for Monza as well. You know, it's always great to work with yourself, and you know, I think we've yeah, we try to provide as much of entertainment as we can for the people watching, and yeah, I mean, you know, we couldn't do this without all of our sponsors as well. You know, Majors Garage, TD Designs, everyone here in the IFL that helps out massively, the admin team, the stewards, all of us that are all trying our best to put on something for everyone here, for the drivers, for the people watching. You know, we all do this voluntarily, and we all really just enjoy it and really want to put on something special for everyone else. So yeah, massive thank you to everyone involved.
Absolutely. Massive thank you to you too, Alyssa. I mean, you've been absolutely killing this commentating. On behalf of the whole IFL, I would like to thank you for becoming the voice of the IFL and giving some life to these battles and dramas that we've seen on track. You've been doing an absolutely fantastic job for your first season. We couldn't be more happy to have you here, and we look forward to having you around for a long time to come.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you want me all back, you know, everyone just has to let me know. I'll be more than happy to do it, provided my schedule allows me to. And you know, I enjoy it here. The community is amazing. If everyone wants to get involved, follow the links. You know, we've got them up on the screen. https://www.iformulaleague.com. Get involved with all of the action. Get involved in the Discord as well. You know, we want more people racing. We want more action like this every single week, because it's absolutely incredible. And you know, we all want to put on all of this for free for everyone. And yeah, I mean, provided you've got an iRacing account and you think it looks fun, come join us. You know, it's just an amazing place to be.